welcome back to another episode of the Latam Medtech Leaders podcast. Today, our guest is Javier Handal, Dr. Javier Handal, president of MRx Solutions, a company that is building a network of clinical research sites in Central America. Javier, it's great to having you here today.
Well, thank you, Julio. Thank you for the opportunity. It's a pleasure for me to be part of your podcast. I've been excited since we scheduled this a couple of weeks ago, and hopefully I'm going to give you enough material for you to post this and have a good attraction.
Beautiful. That's the plan. That's the plan to help companies understand the potential of Latin America and more specifically Central America, including El Salvador. We're going to be speaking a lot about the country next. But all right, let's get started. Tell us about your journey. How is it that you got to where you are today?
Well, it's interesting because obviously El Salvador is a really small country. And I think in order to understand my story, I need to start with my roots. So I come from a really nice family. My parents were great parents for me, and they have the vision to sign me into a French school in El Salvador. So since I was a kid, I always had a lot of international influence in my life. I learned French, Spanish, Portuguese, and English since I was growing up. So that helped me to have a different mentality than maybe the usual young kid who have in a country. And I always had the idea to go out the country, meet the world, and try to do things different. So I always wanted to go to med school. At the time that I graduated school, maybe studying in El Salvador seemed like the best option because of the more the hands-on education than just a theoretical education. So I went to med school, and since I always knew that my final goal was to go to the States and try to go outside the country, I always tried to get advantage of all the opportunities that the university offered me. So I had an opportunity to do some internships in Brazil, Bolivia, Peru, United States. So that helped me to keep opening my mind to new opportunities, to different scenarios, different health systems. And at the end, when I finished med school, my parents are U.S. residents. My sister was born in the United States. At that time, my girlfriend was an American citizen. So I ended up moving to the United States, doing all the process in order to be, a legal immigrant. And in order to do the boards and become a physician there and pursue a specialty there. But that was when I started noticing different opportunities. And that's why through one of my best friends that after that we graduated med school together, he started working in medical research actually here in El Salvador. So talking with him a lot, he started explaining to me the opportunities that El Salvador had in medical research. And that's where things start making sense to me. So being in the States and having all this, let's say, different mentality than a regular Salvadorian because of my traveling and international experiences, I decided to, pursue a different dream and try to start pursuing a career in medical research. So that's where when we start building a company in the United States and in El Salvador as a site management organization in America, trying to manage different sites in Central America, starting with El Salvador, because of course that's my country, but also the country that we knew the better and that we knew all the opportunities that was offering. So that's how the journey started. And that's how then going like understanding the scenario better help us to start connecting with companies, start offering their services, especially through organizations like SCRS that help us open our eyes on all the opportunities that the medical research world has, and to see how underdeveloped the market is in Central America. That help us to pursue that dream of developing the market.
Absolutely. I mean, it's fascinating how opportunities come along. You don't see them. Somebody gives you a tip, and then you start putting things together, and then you start creating
Exactly.
a service that will really help companies that are looking to do fast, cost-efficient, ethical clinical research in
Yes.
Latin America.
Yeah, and now that you mentioned that ethical, that's something that we really focus on because you have much greater experience than the one that I have in medical research. We're fairly new in the market, and I know you have a lot of experience in this area. But from our understanding, one of the big problems in Latin America is how you can professionalize medical research
Yes.
and move from research that's been done in paper to
Yes.
research that's been done through softwares, through technology, through ethical parameters that allows you to have the same standard that you look in America,
Mm-hmm.
but in countries that offer different things,
Yeah.
but without losing the ethical part of it. So that's what we want to bring to the region. We want to bring technology, we want to bring
Mm-hmm.
ethical
Mm-hmm.
ethics, and we want to bring nice work but adjusted to our countries to
Yes.
bring this technology to our people and for our people to have access to this technology and to development and even resources, bringing new resources to our hospitals, to our communities, and that's part of our vision.
Excellent. All right, so let's talk about trends. What's happening in Central America? What's happening in Salvador that is making the country a potential hub for
Yeah.
advanced clinical research?
So I think in El Salvador there's a really interesting political scenario to me. Everybody knows our president, and he has changed the image of the country internationally for great. So now the country is not, and it's not that it's not being known just because of the gang members, but now it's being known because being a safe country, one of the safest countries in the continent, for Bitcoin and other things.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you associate with the country now, and I think that's the first step because you cannot be attractive for investment if you don't have security. If
Correct.
people's dying in the streets, nobody's going to invest in the country.
Correct.
So I think that's the first step. So that being said, the government has been working to attract investment. And I remember I was at the SCRS Global Summit later last year, and in one of the conference, someone said something that I think was really interesting. I asked in the IQVIA meeting, I asked Alison Leedy, actually, that's her name, one of the vice presidents for IQVIA. I asked her why IQVIA was now doing research in a less number of countries every year. And what could Latin American countries do in order to be more attractive for companies like IQVIA?
Mm-hmm.
And she said something that I think is exactly what my country is doing. She said that in order to be attractive, companies won't go to a country in order to change the country. The country needs to offer the best scenario in order for the research companies to go there and make things easier.
Yes.
And if you're not doing things easier, then nobody's going to go to your country.
Yes.
Like, you won't go to a country where you know things are really hard.
Yeah.
You're looking for the country where it's the easiest to work with. So that's what the country is doing. So what we're doing as an SMO and as a Salvadorian Research Center is partnering with the government in order to take advantages of the good resources and the goodwill that the government is putting into bringing investments. So we're shortening the approval times by having a law that enforces the national entities to respond to studies between 15 and 21 days. So that's what the law says in El Salvador. So obviously that's a tool that you have in order to enforce and to put some pressure into the national entities in order to have faster approvals. And at the end, you better than me know that pharmaceutical companies want speed. That's what they want.
And medical device companies too.
Exactly. Like that's what the industry wants. Nobody wants to wait 10 months in order to get approval to start enrolling.
Yes.
Like you want to start enrolling in 2 weeks if possible.
In 2 weeks if possible.
If possible. So
as soon as you sign the contract with the site.
Exactly. You start the site to start enrolling the next day.
Yeah.
So us, that's what we want, of course. Like, we want to be more appealing. We're a small country and we're opening a market. So what we need to do is to take advantage of opportunities like this, like the one you're giving me, for people to understand that we have not just good resources, but we have a good, like a government that's backing up our decisions and our industry. So I think that's one of the key elements that make El Salvador appealing now.
Yeah.
That we're working together with the government in order to make things more appealing for companies like yours to choose our country instead of other countries in the world, because you have all the world to choose from. So why El Salvador? Because at the end, we're trying to do things right and we're trying to do things fast.
Totally, totally. All right, let's talk about speed. Let's talk about the approval timeline, the process. First, what's the process? It's a two-step process, one-step process, three-step process. What are the steps necessary to get approval? How long does it take to get the approval? Let's talk also about the fact that the regulatory agency was just revamped, was just restructured recently, which is a great sign for what we're discussing here.
Yes, that obviously you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Definitely, El Salvador used to have DNM, that was a national regulatory entity, and they just switched to the SRS.
Yes.
So now they have more resources, and now they're trying to do things better. You know, the government is changing different entities, trying to do things better. And to answer your question about the process, let me talk about what the process is in paper and what in our experience the process has been.
Okay.
So in paper, the process is you need to have the approval by the SRS now, the National Regulatory Entity.
Is that the first approval?
That's the first step.
Okay, not the ethics committee.
No, that's the
SRS.
second step. Yeah.
Okay.
So the first step is having the SRS approval. And as I was telling you, now by law, they need to answer between 15 to 21 working days. So we're talking about 1 month.
Yes.
So that's the time they have to get to basically, if you have no observations, that's the time where you can expect to have an approval by them.
Okay.
1
month. Exactly.
Obviously, if you have observations, if you have things to change, things can be delayed a little bit. But then they still have time in order to answer those corrections. They cannot make you wait 3 months in order to do corrections.
Yes.
So if you present your changes in a timely manner, then they need to answer in a timely manner. So that's the first step. So if you get the approval, let's say in 1 month, then the second step is the National Ethical Committee. And let me explain something a little bit, because I know in Latin America the scenarios vary a lot. There's a lot of countries with completely different process. And in other countries that have multiple ethical committees, and in El Salvador we just have one. We just have the National Ethical Committee. So if you have approval,
and I'm sorry, it's a government entity separate from the Ministry of Health. It's
exactly So the second step is to have the ethical approval, and it's exactly the same thing, 15 to 21 days. Okay. After that, if you have, like in medical devices, you need to import the medical device. So you need to get a special visa in order to import the devices. That usually takes 2 to 3 days.
An import permit, not a visa.
Exactly.
Yeah, an import permit.
It's called special visa.
It's called a special visa. Oh, that's funny. That's interesting.
Yeah. So but it is an import permit. Exactly. It's an import permit. Exactly. So as soon as you have that takes a couple days, then you can import the product, the devices, and you have all the approvals to start enrolling. So
the import permit takes just a few days, 4 days.
5 days, let's say.
5 days tops. Okay.
Yeah. So
who gives you that? The customs
SRS,
agency.
the
SRS.
Again,
the Ministry of Health. So you go back to the Ministry of Health.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the SRS is apart from the Ministry of Health. The
regulatory agency. That's what I meant.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So SRS first, then ethics committee second, and then go back to the SRS for the import permit.
Exactly.
So the
And
whole
that's a
process, exactly, and the whole process will take what, 60, 90 days tops? I mean, sort
Exactly.
of. Okay.
Let's say two months and a half. Two
Two and
months
a
and a
half
half.
months.
Yeah.
Okay.
But now let me tell you what we've seen and what
Okay.
opportunities the government is giving us.
Okay.
So the ethical, and this is off the record, but
Okay.
but yeah, but the thing is, the government wants to be more attractive.
Yes.
So what they're doing is they're allowing us to try to do both things at the same time. So
Awesome. That's
if we
excellent.
present if we give all the paperwork to the SRS, we can do the same thing to the ethical committee in order to give them time to check all the information. They won't
Mm.
give us your ethical approval without the SCRS approval, but at least they will gain time in order to check all the information. And as soon as we get the SRS approval, the ethical committee approval will get faster because they already have all the information prior. So that's
Mm.
what's happening now. So that's shortening the times. And now we can confidently say that obviously if there's no observations, we can start enrolling in 2 months,
In 2 months. Mm.
everything included. So
Mm.
that's and that's a goodwill way of working because the law doesn't say that. But
Mm.
in order to make the things more appealing and to attract investment, the ethical committee and the SRS are willing to work together and
Sure.
to partner
Yes.
in order to help research companies like ours to be more appealing for companies like yours.
That's fantastic. Hmm. All right. I get it. And I think it really makes a difference to do parallel
Yes.
applications. I've
Yeah.
seen that in a few other places. It's not that common, but is really a novelty in the
Yeah.
clinical research world. And that also signals the fact that there should be a difference between what the ethics committee reviews in the study documents and what the regulatory agency reviews, because sometimes you have overlap. And for example, in Colombia, the issue is that you have to get ethics committee approval first, and then you go to the National Regulatory Agency, which is a branch of the Ministry of Health,
Yeah.
and they review everything again, and they make corrections to something that the ethics committee already approved. And then you have to go back to the ethics committee to recorrect everything
Yeah.
and get, wait
Yeah.
for that approval. So that makes things,
Yeah.
a little messy and longer.
And now that you say that, something that's really hopeful for the future is that we were in a meeting with the director of the National Ethical Committee, and she was telling. By the way, she's a new one. She just changed a couple of months
Mm.
ago, and she was telling us how she's willing to improve the process that they currently have by trying to communicate with the SRS and making sure that they ask for the same documents on the same format. Because
Exactly,
sometimes you need to change the
exactly.
format for two national entities. So
Totally.
by working on the same format, that is even an easier work for us in order to just present the same paperwork
Yes,
in one place and the other. In
yes,
order not to be switching formats and changing the documents when at the end they want the same information. So I think
yes.
those are really good signs that makes us be really enthusiastic of what the future can bring in medical research in El Salvador, because we think that the government and the national entities, we're aligned. We're looking for the same things. We just want a faster approval process that allows the country to be more appealing in order to bring more investment.
Totally right. Yes. All right. So let's talk about the healthcare system in El
Yes.
Salvador, patient recruitment potential, because on
Yes.
top of speed, you need
Yes.
patient recruitment, right? I mean,
Yes.
you have to combine, and of course, safety, as you said, you have to
Yes.
combine all these three aspects to make the country attractive for clinical research investment. So tell us about the healthcare system. How does it work? Why do you think we can recruit patients in El Salvador fast?
So in El Salvador, I think like in most of the countries, there are different systems that work in parallel. So let me explain a little bit what I mean. So in El Salvador, we have the public system. That's a free system completely financed by the government. We have a social security system that's a part private, part public system where people pay social security and they have access to the hospital.
Mhm.
And then we have the private hospitals where you pay and you have access to healthcare.
Mhm.
So let's talk, obviously, usually in Latin America, the public health system is the one that has the least resources. That's usually what it is.
Yes.
But this government, since the pandemic, has been doing good investments in infrastructure. I think that's really important. So during the pandemic, one of the flagship projects for the government was to build a whole new hospital in order to fight the COVID pandemic.
Yes.
Instead of building like an emergency hospital, they took what was the National Convention Center and made it a hospital. So
Yes.
now that's the biggest hospital in the country with more than 4,000 beds. And just for you to understand, the whole country before COVID had between 25 to 40 ICU beds.
Okay.
The whole country.
Whole country. I mean,
Now,
that's really,
just El Salvador Hospital has 260 ICU beds.
Wow, that's really impressive.
Just El Salvador Hospital. So what that's doing is increasing the national system infrastructure quality, and then you have the other two systems that are the as I mentioned, the social security system, and then the private system that it's, let's say, just for the elites of the country that can afford a private hospital. So what we've done is reach out to the National Ministry of Health and to the authorities in the national hospitals in order to partner with them.
Yes.
In order to have access to those hospitals. So that's the final step for us in order to be a research site that has access to the national network of hospitals.
Yes.
That allows us to have access to millions of patients that are part of the national network of hospitals,
Yes.
and in order to recruit through that system. So let me explain a little bit how we're doing that, because this is a big step for the national system in order to improve the equipments and their infrastructure. What we're doing is we're basically partnering with the national hospitals and paying them all the expenses that the studies generate in order for them to have own resources to invest in the personnel and in infrastructure.
Okay.
So if we get a study that we need 10 ICU patients, what we do is we pay the national hospital. That only depends on the national budget in order for resources. So we are different income source
yes,
for the hospital,
yes,
in order for them to invest on things that they cannot cover through the budget. So talking with the director of the hospital, El Salvador Hospital, she was telling me that one of the problems that they're having now is that they have a lot of young nurses. So in order to qualify them and to certify them in all the research the hospital has, like all the new ICU technology and all the new equipments they have, they're needing to send all these people to other countries in order to train into all these devices. But they don't have enough resources to do that. So by partnering with us and by using some of the resources that the hospital has, they're having access to extra funding in order to train their personnel. So that's the symbiosis that we're doing with the hospital in order for us to have access to inpatient facilities and for them to have access to more resources and to make advantages of the investments that us, our research center, are bringing to the country. So that money is flowing through the national system too.
Yes.
and is bringing equipment and technology to hospitals that maybe don't have those kind of equipments
Mm,
too.
mm, mm.
And also that's allowing us, as you said, to have a big recruitment potential.
That's fantastic. I mean, congratulations,
Oh,
Javier.
thank you.
You are changing the country. I mean, this
Thank
is
you.
mind-boggling. Yeah, fantastic. All right. So we're getting close to the end of the show, Javier. What are your final words of advice for a medical device or a pharmaceutical company that is exploring doing a trial in Latin America? What would you say to the CEO of a company that is in front of you talking to
I will tell them to trust us.
you?
I definitely think, and we just had a couple meetings with our partners in El Salvador, meeting with the directors of the different hospitals and everything. And one of our American partners was telling us, why will someone not do research in El Salvador?
Yeah.
Why would
Hmm.
someone who go somewhere else, anywhere in the world? We
Mm.
have the hospitals, we have the patients, and we have the timelines.
Yes.
What else do you want?
You're
Obviously,
making them an offer they can't refuse.
yes, yes. We were talking about that, and we said now I'm eager to sit in front of a CEO of an American pharmaceutical device company and tell them why will you
Yeah.
do research in America if you can do research in El Salvador?
Yeah. Exactly.
That will be my question to any CEO that's in front of me now.
Yeah,
Like,
well, the competitor is not necessarily the United States,
yeah,
is Eastern Europe, Australia. Why would you go that far
yes.
to do the same research that you can do in El Salvador, which is so close to the United States? And it's
2 hours
safe.
away, 2 hours
Exactly.
away from America, in the same
Time zone. Yeah, 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 yeah.
time zones, same currency. Because in El Salvador, our
Same
currency is
currency. That's
is
also an
American
advantage.
dollar.
Yes.
So we have the scenario set. We just
Yeah.
need companies to trust us and to understand all the offering that we have.
Beautiful. All right, Javier, thank you so much for being here.
Julio, I really appreciate the opportunity. I really appreciate the scenario, and I hope different companies can trust us, and as you doing, and hopefully we can make El Salvador a reference in Latin America
Yes,
in
we're going to
medical
put
research.
Salvador in the map of clinical
Exactly,
research in Latin America.
exactly.
Beautiful. Thanks.